Welcome to Brookline Hub. I'm your host, Harvey Bravman, and I'm here with Debbie Miller and Klara Kaufman from the Brookline Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being with me today. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, I guess the pandemic is the place you have to start with everything these days. What was happening before it? How did you make adjustments as it came along? I think beside the Brookline government, were in the most critical sort of position of getting important information out to businesses about PPP loans and all kinds of things that they needed, keeping people calm. Brookline Chamber you have so many events going on, and they're in-person events, and shaking people's hands and all of that kind of thing is such a massive part of what the chamber is, people really connecting. And then suddenly everyone's afraid of the plague and you can't go near each other. What was it like? Do you remember those days leading up to it where it was like, today the school's closed for a day, and all of a sudden it's 2 weeks, and then it's, what was that like when this pandemic started for you both?
I have a clear memory, and Klara, you can chime in, of the last coffee that we had before the pandemic hit. People were laughing about the fact that it was in vogue now to touch your elbows rather than shake hands.
Right.
And it was the first time people pulled back from each other and were kind of reluctant to shake hands. They were reluctant to hug. It was very different atmosphere. People were just a little bit uncomfortable. And I don't think any of us at that time foresaw what lay ahead. And then, Klara, do you want to talk about the warrant article panel that got canceled and all of the different iterations we went through before that started?
Yeah. So I remember, I think it was March 12th because it was Debbie's birthday. And we had this event scheduled that we're really excited about. It was a panel about the town warrant article legislation. And it was called like warrant articles pertaining to businesses. And so we had gathered all of the different warrant petitioners who were working on legislation that was relevant to businesses, and creating this panel where each of them would speak about what they were trying to do, and there would be opportunities for question and answers, and then we would have pizza. So we were really excited. We got a lot of people to sign up. We got some pizza from Otto's, and we were really looking forward to it. And at first it was like, okay, we can still do it, but we can't have people eating. And this was before the time of masks. So we were like, okay, maybe we can give people a certificate so they can get a slice of pizza afterwards or before. So we didn't really fully realize that there's just no way that this was going to happen. And actually nothing else was going to happen for months in person. So ultimately we did end up canceling it completely, but we were disappointed. And then there was just a really big shift in how we had to operate.
Yeah, I remember that March the 12th. I remember being in, I'm trying to think of where I was. I was in a coffee joint, and we were having a meeting doing the same thing. Like, we're not gonna shake hands, and we're gonna stay on opposite, we spread around the table, but we're in a crowded coffee place, in the middle, and almost no one else is paying any attention to it. And I remember, and then one of my films, Soul Witness, was supposed to be playing at the Lincoln School. And the day before, I contacted them. I have a condition called CIDP. It's a neurological / autoimmune condition. And I never thought about where I had to be or anything like that. But my wife was like, you can't do this, and this is just, you're just going to have to tell them no. And when I called early in the morning, the Lincoln School, they were not happy with me. And they said, listen, this is the last, they went through the whole steps of, don't you understand what it's like when we call like a school-wide like assembly? It was the school. And I said, I know, my wife won't let me leave the house. I want to do it. And they said, all right, well, think about it. They wanted me to think about it. And they said, and I did, I was listening to them, like, because like everything is still normal, right? For all we know. And there had just been a gala, the Teen Center Gala was just a few days before that on the weekend. And later that same day, the day, they announced that for 2 days, the Lincoln School would be closed. Then they announced that all Brookline schools would be closed. And then they said for 2 days, then they said it was 2 weeks. And then the next Monday, businesses were closed. And what a surreal feeling walking down the street, not wanting to like look at you almost felt like if you looked at someone, you could catch something that. So what was did you have sort of like an emergency meeting or something, like when it became obvious that this was going to affect the bottom line for Brookline businesses? They were, what do you do? Like, we have a retail store and you can't come in, and you can't touch, but remember, you couldn't touch things. You had to wash down things and everything. So no one even like being handed something didn't feel safe. What was
Right.
that sort of like? Like, was there an order in which you had to decided to go to try to navigate the world? Like, we were going to have an article about, because businesses, restaurants were trying to get us to have an article. And I have a reporter that just does restaurants and nonprofits and entertainment and things like that. And she was pushing me because, you start to care about the people that own these businesses. And she says, we have to announce that these businesses are open now. And I said, we can't, we have to wait a few days because we're not at the end, we're at the beginning. So we could announce that they're open, and then the governor could close them tomorrow. Like, we have no idea what's going on. We have to stay pat. What were those meetings like?
That's a really good question. I think it was a little frightening for everybody in the very beginning. As you mentioned, it was, the unknown. Nobody really knew what to expect. We knew that it wasn't going to be good financially, certainly, for the community. And so in the very beginning stages, it was unclear. I know in the very beginning, we started matching businesses that had needs with resources. For example, I still remember an auto shop calling out of the blue and saying, we need some help getting PPE. And then realizing that there were other resources in town where people were actually making masks, and wanting to hear about places to deliver them. So it was a perfect opportunity to connect the two. And there were a lot of examples like that. There was a restaurant, I remember, the person who was her head chef was roommates with someone who worked at a hospital, and she was reluctant to come into the restaurant knowing that she could be exposed. So she was wondering if we could find alternative accommodations for her. And I reached out to a couple of our hotels and they responded immediately. So it was like everybody in the community sort of rose to the occasion. It was, I think it's when these challenging times happen, oftentimes you see the best of people. And that's what happened initially.
What did the chamber do, in addition to the communications aspect of it, to keep everyone informed of the latest developments? which I know for me was really helpful. In fact, I have to tell you, I'm joining the chamber today once you've explained to me how to do it. But
Thank you.
but because I used, I mean, you really like, I remember seeing the first thing from the chamber, PPP. I didn't know what PPP meant.
We didn't either.
Were there programs that you instituted?
Absolutely. We had to cancel programs that we were really excited about. We canceled our golf tournament. That's our biggest moneymaker every year. We canceled the women's panel that we always look forward to. It's an in-person event, of course, with women panelists. We had to put that online, which was great. It still was a wonderful experience, but nothing like being in person. And we totally pivoted. I mean, we put so much online, you know, a lot of the kinds of experiences we would have had in person, we had in line to meet the needs of people. We heard from a couple of different businesses, they didn't know what to do because some of their workers who had been getting unemployment and were scared to come back into the business wouldn't come back. And they didn't know whether to hire other people or encourage those people to come back. And they were very torn because they, of course, were attached to these people. They were friends with them as well as employers. So put them in a bind. So we had an event where an expert attorney answered people's questions. And that was just one example. We had so many different workshops like create your own videos, how to sell online, using social media to attract customers, juggling work, family, and how to, you know, transition your office from home, like how to make, we had somebody who was actually a planner who knew how to create an office in a home, giving people like step-by-step instructions, but easy ways to make it happen, and how to create a space when everybody's sharing the same space. Just little things that we would have taken for granted ordinarily. So, and we have really creative, really skilled people in Brookline to be able to pull from. So we were very fortunate. We were really fortunate.
Klara, do you remember anything you want to add to that? Or
I think the only thing I'll add is that, you know, it was a moment where we really wanted to rise to the occasion because we felt that the businesses needed us as a chamber more than ever. You know, our mission, our 4 mission pillars are advocacy, information, networking, and growth. And those were all so important. And at the same time, we were also struggling because our model is a membership-based organization. So a lot of our income comes from people being members and paying their dues every year, people sponsoring our events, which are largely in person. And we had to cancel some major events and shift some of the formats. And also all of the people who are members, the businesses, were all really struggling. So we were trying to juggle both stepping up and really supporting the community with trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep the doors open and make things work? So that was a really big challenge. And I think we were, like, as Debbie said, we were really lucky to be able to not only work with so many amazing people from all over town, but to really have the support of our board and the support of people in our community to help us. And it was a really difficult time, but I think it also created a lot of openings for new ways of thinking and approaching problems.
we had to do, so it was the 10th anniversary, 2020 was the 10th anniversary of the Youth Awards. And there was no Coolidge Corner Theater. And they were struggling, obviously. I mean, everyone's struggling, but we, talking to, you know, the school and the teachers and stuff, and I said, you know, we want to push forward with Zoom and do it. You know, we can't interview these kids. We were like that the Monday that the businesses were shut down. That's when we were starting to record the interviews. So we'd actually chosen kids and everything, and then we couldn't interview them. We couldn't meet them. And one of the things that we learned pretty quickly was that the students were really struggling. Your graduation, your prom,
Mhm.
am I going to school next year? You know, what's going on? And you know, kids are focused on themselves too. So it's like, you know, and there are a lot of students that are like, you know, once you get a situation where things become remote, everyone's at different stages of, you know, understanding how to do that. I worked with Big to create, you know, I started writing how to like look your best on Zoom, what to do. And I sent it to Ann Tice from Big and said, is there anything I did put in here? Just, you know, and there's a lot, it seemed like a lot of steps. And now we all just get on and we just know, but the 2020 interviews were a lot worse than the 2021 interviews, because kids are like got their laptops on their knees, and the laptops like jiggling while they're talking, and you know, like you have the top of their head, and it's things were just, you know, and the kid and the student's 16 and I'm 63, and this is the first time they're meeting me for some award that they didn't know that their teacher, you know. But the thing that was really amazing the last couple of years is if it wasn't for the businesses in Brookline, there would just be no youth awards. And we were, you know, I didn't want to ask anyone for money. To, you know, you don't want to ask for donations. To who are you asking? People that don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we just said, you know, if you can make your regular donation, make it. If you can't, and you could do maybe 50%. And if you can't do that, we'll put you in as a sponsor for free. And then we'll just start it the year after. You would think with that, you would have 90% of the people opting for free. It was the opposite. Everyone went the other way.
Wow.
And said, and you know, you're talking about businesses that are bringing in nothing, and it makes a difference to the kids. And I tell you, you know, we're a small nonprofit. You're looking at it. You know, I have contractors that work for me, like 4 or 5. And then we have a video production company, which is a for-profit business. But basically, I was going to pay for the youth awards. I would have had to pay for the youth awards myself because we were committed to it. But people made donations, and we didn't collect as much as we usually do, but it was a hell of a lot more than I even thought was possible. The things that people were willing to do, given how, you know, ridiculous things seemed. And also when you're talking about PPP, when you talk about the SBA, to most people, that's just like big government. In other words, who knows when you're going to get money, and how it's really going to work, and who you can trust, and who can you talk to. And now I have to talk about, you know, to a government official about whether or not, you know, to some people, keeping the door open is also paying their mortgage on their home, you know. And are they going to lose everything they worked really hard for? So the chamber was just so amazing. This iteration of the chamber is so, to me, different than what I remember from years ago. I remember the chamber being really good for the real estate and the dentists and the lawyers and, the B2B. But if you comment a little on what your outreach to the business to consumer, because they're the ones that everyone needed help, but the chambers really stepped up when it comes to business to consumer operations.
That's always been our charge, without a doubt. And it certainly makes our job a lot more pleasant, for a lot of reasons. We feel like that's our purpose. And I owe a lot of credit to our board. And I owe a lot of credit to our board leadership. Throughout the pandemic, it was Lisa Jones in charge and now David Gladstone in charge. And I think we've been really fortunate to have their leadership, and that both presidents care deeply about the purpose of this organization and how much we matter to businesses. And they set the tone. And the board that we have right now is phenomenal. I mean, I can't say enough about our board members. Klara and I can speak for Klara too, I'm sure, on this, that we both feel very grateful.
What's happening now at the chamber?
So that's a really good question. It's a feel-good story, because it's almost like Frank. If you're familiar with the Frank Capra plays, like You Can't Take It With You, I feel like we're in one. I really do. When people couldn't pay for events or sponsorships or their memberships, and Klara who works part-time, for certainly a lower salary than she deserves, and I work full-time. We both cut back. I went to a part-time, half-time position, and Klara cut her half-time in half. We still had to do what we do and more. And that said, our board stepped up, and we basically threw ideas against the wall. I mean, we just came up with new sponsorships and new ideas that worked. We had one sponsorship that we'd never had before called Chamber Champion, for example, and that was for $5,000. And the person that paid that, and you won't be surprised when I tell you who that is.
Joby?
Yeah. Chobe became our chamber champion for $5,000, and then those monies paid for people who could no longer pay their annual dues, and that was a godsend. And that was one example of others. Another very exciting sponsorship that we incorporated is a lifetime membership, and for $20,000, Suburban Home Healthcare stepped up like no other members ever stepped up. And that $20,000, I have to tell you, made such an enormous difference. And so we felt very, very fortunate. And then there were other people too that stepped up in a big way. Robert Kraft gave a contribution, Hamilton Realty, Chestnut Hill. So we were able to jump back and proceed. And then we went on to do really important work. So we've been running throughout the whole pandemic. We've incorporated some wonderful programs like Restaurants for Brookline, like Discover Brookline. We're going to have some technical workshops coming up where we collaborate with Boston University and Boston College that we're really excited about. There's just been a lot of good things happening.
What still needs to be done in your view? What's on your wish list or your bucket list for things that you want the chamber to do? You're doing so much as it is.
Thank you for asking that. That's a good question. I would love to have a full-time Klara. I feel like every business should have a Klara, first of all, because there's nobody quite like her. She is just amazing to work with. And I'm not just saying that because she's in the room I mean, anybody who's worked with her can attest to that. But having a full-time person is really necessary. And it was necessary really before the pandemic. So we're constantly exploring ways to make that happen. And so eventually I'm hoping that we can at least have a full-time person besides me. And then ideally, down the road, it would be great to even think even bigger, to having, at the most, even 3 people would be terrific. It's hard to do all that we do with 1.5 people.
Where does the anxiety come from the Brookline business community now? In other words, is it coming from the retail stores with the retailing online and unsure of how to position themselves? You've got, I know there was a bookstore in Brookline was struggling to stay open, and you have another bookstore that's doubling in size. And so it's all, going in different directions. How do we keep our commercial areas what they are, while dealing with the reality of the situation that you're competing against Amazon?
So that's a really good question. Before the pandemic, these businesses were competing with Amazon. Before the pandemic, this was, the elephant in the room. And then the pandemic just intensified it. And I think those businesses that were not adept at selling online realized very quickly that they had to get there. And so some businesses certainly have been doing better than others. You asked about anxiety and who we hear it from. The restaurants are really hurting right now. That's why our Restaurants for Brookline program was, we felt so good about it, because not only was it helping the restaurants, but it was helping the food pantry and senior center people that needed it. And our next round, our 3rd round, is going to also help the teen center, which we're really excited about. But that's a drop in the bucket. It helps the restaurants, but it's not going to save the restaurants. The restaurants are in trouble. Some restaurants have closed. Some are just hanging on by a thread. Some are doing okay, but when people are reluctant to go inside, it's tough. And it's going to be harder as it gets colder. Retail businesses are also hurting. We got a shout out from a retail person yesterday saying, could you please send some people our way? Could you get on social media or do something, because we're not seeing the customers and it's close to Christmas and we're scared. So it's hard for everybody, I think. It's a tough time. And so we're just trying to encourage people as much as we can in different ways, whether it's, an article in the tab or social media or our newsletters, to think about buying locally when they're buying presents for the holidays or getting takeout food or whatever it might be to do their business in Brookline.
If I'll add on to that, this is something we were thinking about at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2021. Debbie was on the Facebook page, Brookline Townwide Discussion, and someone had posted this website on there, which is called Not Amazon. And it's a Canadian website where you can go to different cities and look at listings of local businesses. And the idea is to encourage people to shop not on Amazon. And someone was saying, why don't we have something like this in Brookline? And Debbie commented and said, well, actually on the chamber website, we do have a directory, but people responded and said, that's not what we mean, because our directory was very simple. You could just look it up. You could sort by like a million different categories, from accounting to automobile services. And it just wasn't exactly what people needed. And then at the same time, in the past, we had our annual business, oh, you can't really see it, the community guide and business directory, which is like a paper booklet that has a list of all the businesses in Brookline, who's a chamber member, a map of the T, lists of houses of worship and schools, lists of elected officials, and other information that's useful for both community members, but people visiting from outside of the community. So it was on our mind, how can we help people who aren't out and about in the same way that they were before the pandemic know about all the amazing businesses in Brookline? So then, like a month later, we heard about an opportunity from the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism to apply for a grant. And we decided to take that opportunity, and we were able to get funding and launch Discover Brookline, which is our new website that went live in July of this past year. And it's sort of supposed to be like a tour guide. It's a local business directory. You can search by various categories like eat, shop, play, stay, resources. You can search by specific tags like neighborhoods, woman-owned businesses, and things like that. And businesses have listings where they have photos, and they also have links to their website, social media, their hours, phone number, and then also a description about them, as well as a story about what makes their business special. And then we also have a blog where we highlight different things that are fun in Brookline, from community sourced DJs, sort of an anti-algorithmic effort to showcase local music tastes, to a taste of Brookline, which is a recipe feature, and more. And we're hoping to expand that in the coming year, because right now all the businesses who are participating are chamber members, and we want it to be really inclusive and have all businesses in the community. So that's something we're really looking forward to next year. And it's also something that's a really great resource for the community to support the Brookline businesses.
Looking at there's an amazing image at the top of Discover Brookline, that who is a local person do that. It's Coolidge Corner, by a graphic artist that just did an amazing job of depicting Coolidge Corner. And yeah, I mean, I think I was about to put in some orders today and didn't, because of, I'm going to go down to Coolidge Corner. But it is like you have to make that effort. You have to decide this is important to you. I mean, it's really easy to buy people that you need, something on the internet in a short period of time. But what you lose is a lot. You lose a vibrant commercial area, and we are going to be coming back, at some point, more than we are now. But, we have to keep these places going, and where we don't want to see what Brookline would look like with more empty buildings than there are now. I mean, if you start to get where you lose your restaurants, that's a lot of commercial real estate. And I know, I've been talking to commercial real estate investors, owners of properties, and they were really in a heck of a position, because they're renting to people who are trying to get a break from them, because the business is trying to stay in business. The banks aren't telling them that, their loans, they're still leveraged. It's not like these big buildings are owned 100%. They're all leveraged. So they have to take in whatever the terms of the lease are, just so that they could stay and they can meet their obligations to the bank. And some of these profit margins aren't that much. So everyone is in this difficult situation. And so staying calm isn't like the easiest thing to do. It's a challenge.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's tough. It's really tough. I want to make a point when you mentioned something about the illustration on Discover Brookline and the homepage. That's Kit Collins, who's a very talented artist who we've been fortunate enough to work with, and we're looking forward to working with her further on this project. And we're supposed to, there are pieces in there that, in addition to Coolidge Corner, are other places that are nearby that we try to put in there too. And one of the plans that we have going forward on that is that eventually, not right now, but eventually in a couple months down the road, you'll be able to click on different pictures in there and it will take you to another page that will describe it. Like, for example, you'll be able to click on the T and it will take you to a T map.
Wow. I saw something once where it was a piece of software that worked with our retail clothing store. And they end up having to, they take pictures of the clothing as it comes in, as they're basically, and so you could sort of zoom through, I use Zoom, different kind of Zoom, but you sort of navigate through the room and you could take a shirt and flip it around and see the other side of it, and things like that, and look to see what the price tag is. And
wow.
And so it's basically like shopping online, except you are in that Brookline store. And it's, I have to find that again, but it probably cost a fortune, right? But whatever, all those little tricks too, it's just, you can't buy some of this stuff. I mean, there's no way that I could possibly buy a puzzle without going to Eureka, or something like that, or the people at Booksmith are they're just so dedicated to what they're doing. It's like, I want to buy books from people who love to read and who love the idea of people reading books and who believe in it. And it's not just a calculation, and a warehouse and they're keeping books that they don't really need to keep because it's going to be a while before they sell, but they're there because you can't have a bookstore without it. Yeah. Period. And it's just, it is like swimming uphill, but we need to do it. And thank you so much to the chamber. We're getting near the end. We're going to put on our site the BrooklineChamber.com and also DiscoverBrookline.com. And any questions that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you that you think is important?
Thank you. That's really wonderful. I will say, stay tuned for some workshops that I had mentioned before that are going to be very worthwhile if businesses are interested in communication, branding, marketing, or cybersecurity, because this is going to be an opportunity for businesses to sign up for these. It's a series, it's a 10-week series, taking 2 weeks per topic, taught by the experts at BU and BC, and it's going to be free to businesses in Brookline and Brighton.
Wow.
So that's going to be an opportunity that we're really looking forward to. Klara, did you have any other thoughts in terms of what we wanted to share?
Yeah, I guess I would just echo, there's a lot coming up. I'm not sure when this will go live, but we are getting ready for the third round of Restaurants for Brookline, as Debbie mentioned, which, if you don't know, is this amazing program where we pay restaurants to produce approximately 50 meals a week that are then donated to the Brookline Food Pantry, the Senior Center, and this time the Brookline Teen Center as well. And so we are looking for applications from Brookline-based, independently owned restaurants. So you can find a link to apply to that on our website. And we're really excited.
That's an incredible program.
And I would add to that program is due to the wherewithal of Senator Cynthia Cream. Cynthia Cream is responsible for starting that, and we're so grateful. So we got funding for that to start that the first round, because it was so successful and restaurants were so grateful and the food pantry was so grateful and the senior center. We we applied for a grant from the Brookline Community Foundation and got a $30,000 grant from the foundation, and then also raised funding from individuals, and we were able to replicate that program. So that was terrific. And then we're lucky enough now to get another round from the state government, again, State Senator Cynthia Cream. And so we're going to be doing that in starting beginning of the year. So we're really grateful. A lot of people have come together to do good things during this time.
You can say that again. Anyone out there who, especially if you're someone who works hard and appreciates others that work hard, no one works harder to me than restaurant people. They work long hours and they work hard. And if you feel uncomfortable going inside, then get it to go. Find a way to support them, even if you don't view that restaurant as a sort of a to-go type of restaurant. They've made adjustments. I'm sure all of them have, and they'll appreciate it. And the first time you go there to actually sit down, they'll remember that what you did, when they needed you. So just really, and they're salt of the earth type of people, I think, restaurant people, and I could never do that work. So I have real appreciation for it, and just hope that we can just keep everyone's head above water until the future's brighter for all of us. Stay tuned. We're gonna give you some more information on Brookline Chamber and Discover Brookline. Thank you so much, Klara and Debbie, for being on the show. You guys are terrific. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, even more.
Thank you so much, Harvey. We look forward to working with you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Klara, I might call you if I have trouble signing up for I'm sure that anyone can do it. So I'll go online right this second to sign up for the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, that's great, Harvey. That's wonderful. Thanks. That's really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
You too. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Harvey.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Danielle Myers of ADW Video Productions and BrooklineHub.com. BrooklineHub.com is a 501c3 nonprofit online publication dedicated to community building through local reporting and events. Brookline Facing Civil Rights was produced by our founder, Harvey Bravman. The film is about the experiences of African Americans who helped break the wall of segregation that existed in Brookline before the civil rights laws were passed in the 1960s. Last year, the film sold out the Coolidge Corner Theater and included a panel discussion on inclusivity. You can stream the film and the discussion on BrooklineHub.com in exchange for a donation to the Brookline Community Foundation's Safety Net Fund. You can also stream Soul Witness, a film that features interviews with Brookline Holocaust survivors conducted 30 years ago, on soulwitness.org. For the last 11 years, Harvey has been interviewing outstanding teens as part of an event held at the Coolidge called the Brookline Youth Awards. The Brookline Youth Awards are an opportunity for Brookline residents to hear about the character, challenges, and dreams of its young people, as well as adults dedicated to their success through the power and intimacy of video interviews.